Thousands of people have taken part in a far-right protest in central London this afternoon, led by activist Tommy Robinson. There's also been an anti-racist counter-protest nearby.
And when I want to finish by saying this. You all need to remember why you are here. These are our memories. But what we do today is for the children and their futures, so they do not have to go through what we go through.
Now, freedom of speech. What does it cost you in your family to speak the truth and speak freely? Probably not as much as it costs some. Why South Africa, Mariah Khan, is why I have so much respect for ex-Muslims. Because when they speak out, they lose everything. As well as being punishable by death. So we've got an audience and Mariah Khan to produce yourself. Give her a round of applause, everyone.
I'm going to say a few words nonetheless. So Tommy Robinson once said, courage comes with fear. Pretty deep, right? Because fear pushes each and every one of us outside our comfort zones. And that's why I'm standing talking to you here today. My mum always said, fear is a false emotion appearing real. F-E-A-R. But let's get one thing straight. None of you have come here today based on a false emotion. All I see is a crowd full of people who know exactly what they want and mean what they say. Each and every one of you here today is here because they care for and love this country. And it's time to stand your ground. For the last 15 years or so, whenever Tommy had the guts to say and confront the harsh realities of Islam in this country, his message fell on deaf ears, including mine. Not anymore. I had to leave this beautiful city, the country I was born in, to realize what horrors lie on the other side of various parts of the world. It's only now I realize what must be protected at all costs. It's not racist to care about your country. It's not racist to love your country. It's not far right to care about it. It should not upset the establishment or the media. And, sorry. In fact, it's your prerogative to do so. Most people here today, not least Tommy, would have been called any of these names, probably been cancelled to some varying degrees or at least vilified. I can't speak for everyone here, but what I can say is all I see is good, hard-working, concerned, loyal patriots dedicated to the preservation of their country and culture. And too damn right. Why not? Britain's amazing. This country's amazing. How have we got to the point where even a Union Jack flag on a window is frowned upon, but my entire neighborhood could be swimming in a flurry of red, green and white in support of Palestine? How did we get here? I'll tell you how. By being one of the most irresponsible and spineless countries in Europe. By embracing the very people who want to bring this nation to its knees. By that I mean for far too long we've allowed British culture to be pushed around while we bend over backwards to appease others. This needs to stop. We need to treat the degradation of our cities, including London, the spaces, the obsession with diversity, for the sake of it, and a massive no to anyone thinking they can operate parallel legal systems, Sharia or any other, in this country. This is England. and much more integration. And let me be clear, we have no need for Sharia in this country as we have one of the most esteemed judicial systems in the world. Yes, we have problems, but they're nowhere near on the scale of countries grappling with 7th century tribal desert revenge laws. So thank you, Sharia, but we'll pass.
Tommy Robinson is a name that has become synonymous with controversy, far-right activism, and polarising presence in British society. For some, he is a crusader for free speech and a voice for the disenfranchised, a man unafraid to speak out against what he perceives as the dangers posed by radical Islam and unchecked immigration. For others, he is a dangerous provocateur, a criminal who has repeatedly broken the law in his pursuit of an agenda that has fanned the flames of division and hatred across the United Kingdom. Born Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon in 1982 in Luton, Bedfordshire, Mr. Robinson's rise to notoriety is deeply intertwined with the social political fabric of modern Britain. From his early days as a leader of the English Defence League (EDL) to his more recent ventures as a media personality and political agitator, Mr. Robinson has always been at the centre of controversy. His actions have led to numerous arrests and convictions, making him as much a figure of legal scrutiny as he is of public discourse. This story aims to take an in-depth look into the life of Tommy Robinson, exploring the complex and often disturbing world that he has both shaped and been shaped by. In the chapters that follow, we will examine Mr. Robinson's journey from his early life in a working class town to his ascent to the figurehead of a far-right ideology in the UK. We will delve into the crimes he has committed, from incitement to violence to fraud, and the legal battles that have ensued as a result. This story was not just a recounting of Mr. Robinson's criminal history, it is also an exploration of the power he has wielded and the influence he continues to exert on both his supporters and the broader society. Mr. Robinson's story is not just a tale of one man, it is a reflection of the divisions and tensions that characterise contemporary Britain. His rhetoric has resonated with many who feel left behind by globalisation, alienated by multiculturalism, and threatened by the changes they see around them. Yet his influence extends beyond those who agree with him. The media, the judiciary, and the public at large have all been forced to confront the challenges posed by a figure who thrives on controversy and defies easy categorization. In telling this story, we will not shy away from the darker aspects of Mr. Robinson's life and career. The crimes he has committed are not just legal infractions, they are actions that have had real and often devastating consequences for individuals and communities. By examining these crimes in detail, we aim to shed light on the methods Mr. Robinson has used to achieve his goals, the impact of his actions on his victims, and the broader implications for the law and order in the UK. At the same time, we will explore the agenda that drives Mr. Robinson, a mix of nationalism, anti-Islam sentiment, and a claimed defence of free speech. We will analyse how this agenda has evolved over time, how it has been received by different segments of society, and the ways in which it has been both supported and opposed by various institutions, including the media and legal system. This story will not attempt to vilify or glorify Tommy Robinson, rather it is an attempt to understand him and dissect the lives and crimes of a man who has become one of the most divisive figures in recent British history. In doing so, we hope to provide listeners with a comprehensive and nuanced view on a man who, whether we like it or not, has left an undeniable mark on the landscape of modern Britain. As we embark on this journey through the life and actions of Tommy Robinson, it is important to remember that this is not just a story about one individual, it is a story about the power of ideas, the consequences of extremism, and the complex interplay between crime, politics, and society in the modern world. Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon, known to the world as Tommy Robinson, was born on November 27th, 1982 in Luton, Bedfordshire. Luton, a town located about 30 miles north of London, was once a thriving industrial hub known for its car manufacturing and hat making industry. However, by the time Mr. Robinson was born, Luton had already begun its transformation into a town marked by economic decline and increasing social tension. Mr. Robinson's parents divorced when he was still a young child, child, an event that would have a significant impact on his formative years. Raised primarily by his mother, a former Irish Catholic who later remarried, Mr. Robinson adopted his stepfather's surname, Lennon. His biological father, who he had limited contact with, had little influence on his upbringing. Mr. Robinson's early life was shaped by a complex mix of familial relationships and a sense of belonging that he would later seek to replace with a sense of identity rooted in his town and its struggles. Luton was not just the backdrop of Mr. Robinson's early life, it was a significant influence on his worldview. By the 1980s and 1990s, Luton had become a town known for its ethnic diversity, home to a significant population of South Asian immigrants, many who were Muslim. The town's demographic changes, coupled with economic hardships, created an environment ripe for tension. For many working class white families like Mr. Robinson's, the presence of a growing immigrant community was seen as a threat to their way of life, fueling resentment and a sense of alienation. Mr. Robinson grew up in a household where these tensions were palpable. Conversations about them versus us were not uncommon, and a young Stephen absorbed the frustrations of those around him. This environment laid the groundwork for his views he would later espouse, as he sought to channel his anger and disillusionment he witnessed into a broader narrative about identity, belonging, and perceived justice. Mr. Robinson attended Butteridge High School in Luton, where he was known as a bright student with potential. However, he was also known for his rebellious streak and a tendency to challenge authority. This rebelliousness, combined with the simmering tensions of his home life and environment, began to manifest in his behaviour at school. Teachers noted his intelligence, but also his quick temper and unwillingness to back down from a fight, traits that would later characterise much of his personal persona. During his teenage years, Mr. Robinson began to associate with a local football firm, a group of supporters known for their involvement in hooliganism. This exposure to the more violent and tribal aspects of football culture further fueled his sense of belonging to a community that was at odds with the changing face of Luton. It was during this time that Mr. Robinson began to form an identity that would later become central to his activism, a defender of his people against what he perceived as the encroachment of others. Mr. Robinson's first encounters with the police came not long after he left school. By the age of 16, he had already been involved in several altercations that had drawn the attention of local police authorities. These early brushes with the police were not yet serious, but they marked the beginning of a pattern that would define much of his adult life: a willingness to confront authority and a refusal to accept the consequences of his actions without a fight. At the age of 18, Mr. Robinson was convicted of assaulting an off-duty police officer who had intervened in a domestic dispute involving his then girlfriend. The incident, which resulted in a 12-month prison sentence, later reduced on appeal, was a turning point for Mr. Robinson. It was his first significant experience with the criminal justice system, and it left him with a deep-seated resentment towards what he perceived as an unfair system that was biased against people like him. The events of September the 11th, 2001 marked a significant turning point in Mr. Robinson's life. Like many others around the world, Mr. Robinson watched in horror as the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center collapsed. But for Mr. Robinson, the events of 9/11 were more than just a tragedy. They were a catalyst for his growing suspicion and resentment towards Islam. He began to view Muslims not just as part of Luton's diverse community, but as a potential threat to the very fabric of British society. This shift in perspective was reinforced by local events. Luton had a history of producing radical Islamic preachers, and in the years following 9/11, the town became associated with several high-profile cases of radicalisation. For Mr. Robinson, these developments confirmed his worst fears and provided the justification for the anti-Islam rhetoric that would become central to his later activism. In 2004, Stephen Yaxley Lennon adopted the name Tommy Robinson, a pseudonym taken from a well-known Luton football hooligan. The choice of name was symbolic, reflecting Mr. Robinson's desire to create a public persona that was separate from his personal life, a persona that was tough, unyielding, and ready to defend his community by any means necessary. The adaptation of his new identity was also the beginning of a more organised approach to his activism. No longer content with being just another angry young man, Mr. Robinson began to position himself as a spokesperson for a growing segment of the population that felt marginalised and ignored by mainstream politics. His early efforts were small scale and local, but they laid the foundation for a far more significant role he would soon play in British society. By the time he had adopted the name Tommy Robinson, Robinson, Stephen Yaxley Lennon was already well on his way to becoming one of the most controversial figures in Britain. His early life had been marked by a series of influences and events that shaped his worldview, his family background, the tensions in Luton, his brushes with the police, and the impact of global events like 9/11. This chapter of his life set the stage for everything that would follow. It was here, in the gritty streets of Luton, that Mr. Robinson's sense of identity and purpose began to take shape. It was here that he learned to fight, both literally and metaphorically, for what he believed in. And it was here that the seeds of his later activism were sown, seeds that would grow into a movement that would both captivate and terrify a nation. The protest by a group of radical Islamists against the return of British soldiers from Afghanistan. The protesters held signs denouncing the soldiers as butchers and baby killers, an act that ignited fury amongst many in the town, including Mr. Robinson.
A parade to mark their return from Iraq, the end of their second tour of duty there in as many years. 200 soldiers from the 2nd Battalion, the Royal Anglian Regiment, marched through the centre of Luton, welcomed home by thousands, but also along the route of protest. Muslim demonstrators with placards and anti-war slogans. One chant, "British soldiers go to hell." The parade continued, but after the soldiers had passed, there were more angry scenes as the demonstrators were shouted down. Many who'd come to welcome the regiment and support the parade felt the demonstration should not have been allowed.
Demonstration, disgusting, absolutely disgusting.
If they've got something to protest about, there's a time and a place for it. Get a petition, go to Downing Street. These guys are just doing a job for their country.
The demonstration was small. Those taking part were moved away by police.
You'll always get a small minority who will abuse any situation. They're not representative of the community at large. I don't think in the way that they do their business they're representative of the Muslim community either.
The Royal Anglian Regiment was given the freedom of the borough several years ago to recognise its service, and today they were doing their best not to let what happened overshadow the purpose of the parade.
Today isn't about politics, it's all about saying thank you to our local family and friends and showing that the Royal Anglian Regiment is part of the local community as their local infantry regiment.
But there is little doubt that the protest, though limited in size, has caused a great deal of resentment.
This incident became the catalyst for the formation of the EDL. Mr. Robinson and a small group of like-minded individuals saw the protest as a final straw in a series of provocations by what they perceived as an increasingly bold and unchallenged Muslim community. Mr. Robinson, already known locally for his outspoken views and his previous involvements in football hooliganism, seized the opportunity to organise a group that would stand against what they saw as the Islamization of Britain. The street-smart persona quickly emerged as the group's de facto leader. He took on the role as a spokesman, using his newfound platform to voice the frustrations and fears of those who felt marginalised in their own community. The EDL's coverage of the EDL's activities, which in turn attracted more supporters. Mr. Robinson and his fellow organisers capitalised. Robinson understood the power of media and used it to his advantage, crafting a public image that resonated with those who felt marginalised by the political establishment. Television appearances, newspaper interviews and documentary features all helped to elevate Mr. Robinson's profile. While much of the coverage was critical, it also provided Mr. Robinson with a platform to spread his message. He became a frequent guest on talk shows and news programs, where he was often positioned as the voice of the disaffected working class, despite, or perhaps because of, the overwhelmingly negative portrayal of the EDL in the media. Mr. Robinson's notoriety grew. Mr. Robinson also mastered the use of social media, which allowed him to bypass traditional media gatekeepers and communicate directly with his supporters. Platforms like Facebook and YouTube became essential tools for organising EDL activities and spreading the group's message. Mr. Robinson's online presence was marked by a blend of populist rhetoric, personal anecdotes and provocative statements, all designed to galvanise his base and attract new followers. Mr. Robinson himself was no stranger to physical confrontations, and his leadership of the EDL was marked by numerous instances of public disorder. One of the most significant legal cases during this period was Mr. Robinson's 2011 conviction for leading an illegal demonstration on the roof of FIFA's headquarters in Zurich. Mr. Robinson and several other EDL members staged the protest to draw attention to FIFA's decision to ban the England football team from wearing poppies on their shirts during a match. Mr. Robinson was convicted of public order offences and sentenced to 12 months in prison, though he ultimately served just 3 months. These legal troubles did little to deter and immigration in Britain. Mr. Robinson positioned himself not just as a defender of Luton, but as a champion of British identity as a whole. He rallied against what he saw as a failure of the political establishment to address the concerns of ordinary Britons, particularly those related to immigration and integration of Muslim communities. The ideological shift was accompanied by a growing emphasis on his role as a public figure. Mr. Robinson began to see himself as more than just a leader of a far-right street movement. He started to position himself as a political commentator and activist, someone who could articulate the frustrations of a significant portion of the population. This self-perception was reinforced by the increasing attention he received from both supporters and critics. However, his ideological broadening also brought with it new challenges. As the EDL grew, it attracted a diverse range of supporters, some who held extremist views that went beyond Mr. Robinson's own rhetoric. This led to internal tensions within the group, with Mr. Robinson struggling to maintain control over a movement that was becoming increasingly difficult to manage. By 2013, the EDL was beginning to show signs of strain. The group, Mr. Robinson stated that he could no longer control the extremist elements that had infiltrated the organisation.
Basically, first of all, I believe what's happened with the English Defence League has had to happen. I believe the debate has had to be had, and I believe that for the last 4 years I've seen it as part of the solution. I believe the underswell and the feeling has had to get out there. I've then become of the belief that progressing, instead of being part of the solution, it may become part of the problem, which is not what I've wanted. First of all, I apologise for the fact that what I've represented and said has not resonated individually with Muslims. I don't hate Muslims. I've said the whole way through this, I don't hate Muslims. And ourselves, we're both singing off the same hymn sheet. From Luton Town, it's a completely multicultural town, and from the day one in English Defence League, we wanted to embrace everyone, all colours and all creeds. I have a passion to combat Islamist ideology, and I said it earlier, I want to lead a revolution against that Islamist ideology, but I don't want to lead a revolution against Muslims. I don't hate Muslims. And I went away for 18 weeks in October, and during that time it was the first time I'd had out the English Defence League in 3 years, and it's quite a chaotic life to say the least. It has been chaotic with death threats or violent assaults or arrests. It's been chaotic. And then when I was away for 18 weeks, I was in solitary confinement. It gave me time to evaluate everything, think about where I was going. I thought about how I neglected my wife, my children, my family. And I also thought about, what do we want? What is it we want? People keep saying, well, you're doing this, which we are doing, and I still maintain. Each time we're doing demonstrations, it's a cry for help from Middle England. It's like, there are problems. We're not going to solve these problems by pretending they're not there. And quite frankly, that's what I've seen, everyone burying their head in the sand. So I asked myself a lot of questions when I was away, and what we want, and to achieve what we want, is I've got 3 young children. I want what's best for them. And what's best for them is to confront the problem, but I then realised that marching through the streets saying Allah, Allah, Huda is Allah, what we were actually doing is giving any moderates, any people who are willing to speak up against extremist voices, we're actually giving them something something to align themselves with extremists on the same issue, because we're offending all of them. So to solve the problem, we need the support, and we need to work with Muslims in this country to defeat Islamist ideology. And similarly, Muslims need to work with non-Muslims to defeat the neo-Nazi ideology. Now, when I come out of custody, I've been gone 18 weeks. We had fought for 3.5 years to keep fascists, to keep racists out of the English Defence League. When I was away, there was an attempt at a coup which which involved people turning on Kevin Carroll because he is of the same ethos and belief of what I want, and an attempted takeover. Now, I was released on tag. When I was released on tag, it's the first demonstration in 3 years I hadn't been to. And when I looked at that Manchester demonstration, and I saw flags and signs, white pride flags, I saw things that did not represent me. Yeah? And I've managed to steer this, very difficult, but when I was looking at it, I thought that does not represent me. Am I willing to be the public face for them? No, I'm not. And that's the big issue for me. That's when it started. This started in February. And I come out and look, I will not be the public face for them. And then I've said, when someone turns up at a demonstration and they lift up their top and they've got a picture of a mosque and it says boom, yeah, Muslims think they're offended and they're upset. We're offended by that. It's my face. Everyone here reports is a racist. It's me that takes the flak from it, and I have not once support that or believe it. I have to go pick my kids up from school and look at other parents and look at people judging me, everyone judging me on something, on actions of others. And I've been willing to wear that hat because I know how much this movement has meant to so many ordinary people. A lot of people want to tarnish all English Defence League supporters as extremist Nazis. They're not. Okay, the English Defence League, I've met the best people I've ever met in my life in that movement. And I believe they're discriminated against and frowned upon because they're working class. And there hasn't been a voice. And the biggest part of this which was hitting me so hard, is that I'm going to take that away from them. And so many people are going to feel let down from that. And there was another demonstration recently in Portsmouth, so that's come out. I've made the decision, I told my family, which was the biggest relief they'd ever heard, that I'm leaving the English Defence League. When I looked at that, and I thought, I've gone, and you've, not just these people back at our demonstration that I've been fighting to keep out, they've actually been invited back for this call for unity with the far right. Something I've never stood for and I wouldn't stand for. And then, from there, I've made the decision, and I didn't get involved with the English Defence League, and then Trummer Lee Ricky was brutally murdered. And it was at that point that I thought, you know what, everything went out the window for me. It was, again, passion took over, and everything took over, where I threw my life straight back into it. And for people to say this is easy, because I've heard many people say, oh, you're looking for the easy way out. This isn't easy. And the easy way out would have been to leave the English Defence League. Sitting here with these lads here, this ain't the easy way out for me. I'm going back to working class communities that are going to feel let down, and I've got to face them. And I can face them in the conscience that what I'm doing is the right thing. And what I'm doing, I believe, is a step in the right direction, not the wrong direction. And I'm not denouncing the fact that I wish to oppose Islamist ideology, and we have a passion, we both have a passion. I despise Nazis as much as I despise Islamists. And anyone who's watched for the last 4 years, although it hasn't been reported, we've set fire to swastika flags. I get as many threats from neo-Nazis. I've had them come into my hometown and attack me in my pub, in my local pubs. So I've tackled it, and I wish to continue tackling and highlighting that problem, because what they've done is what we've tried to build with the English Defence League is a credible voice to combat it. They ruin everything. Because the minute a bottle thrown, the minute racism is heard, no one's listening to our message of what we're trying to say, which is why so many Muslims out there automatically, when I see them, think I hate them. They think I hate them. I don't hate them. I don't hate them at all. But at the same time, I want to combat Islamist ideology. I'm not going to shy away from talking about issues that need to be spoken about. And that's where I'm at. Lee Rigby was killed. Moving on from that, there was a demonstration in Portsmouth where, again, I couldn't attend. To be honest, it's unsustainable for me to attend every demonstration with my family. I have 3 young children, I've neglected them enough, and the minute I don't attend, these rogue elements are back. Not just are they back, recently in Portsmouth, these splinter groups were giving speeches. Now, my decision then come that I don't want to be a public face for that. It's beyond my control. There's demonstrations being called in certain cities, in Bristol. I'm not in support of some of these demonstrations, and I'm not willing to be the public face for it. I also, then, in the middle of all this, I was on a journey with the BBC in a programme called When Tommy Met Mo. And when I met Mo Ansar, again, it strengthened my belief in what I do and what I say. It strengthened my belief in the fact that I met a representative who was supposed to be in charge of interfaith, who was an apologist. And he was apologising, and he did not accept one of the problems. In that documentary, I come across Osama. I went away. I'd already known the work William were doing for years, I'd read the reports and the policy change they'd brought about from tackling violent extremism to tackling non-violent extremism. For the last 4 years I've said I'm not worried about the violent Muslim extremists on the streets. My problem is with the Islamist extremists that are working with our councils across the country. In my hometown, my representative of the Muslim community is an Islamist. So that was my problem. So when I saw the policy change they brought about, and then when Majid come and spoke to Mo Ansar, he put it on the table to Mo Ansar and picked him at all his faults, which I didn't expect any Muslim to do. So I then spoke with Majid about his views, my views, and to be honest, I found myself singing off the same hymn sheet for what I see as a future and the way to progress forward. Now, a lot of people are saying, I've had it all day today, I'm getting a lot of people calling me a sellout, calling me a coward. Now, I have to be true to myself, I have to do what I think's right. This is what I think's right. I don't think there's any more powerful statement than us four sitting here today, in the face of Islamist extremism and in the face of extreme far right, neo-Nazis, fascists, the splinter organisations that have been like vultures to the English Defence League. Now, at the same time, this voice has been created. There is a voice that's been created, and whether people like it or not, whether anyone likes it or not, millions of people across this country, when I've been talking, they're agreeing with what we're saying. They're not agreeing with the tactics or the extremism that's sometimes shown within the English Defence League, but it's hitting home with people. There's a reason why the English Defence League ended up having more online support than any political party in this country, because it's hitting home. Now, I weighed all this up. We have 2 documentaries ready to go. These documentaries would have brought more support to the English Defence League. The English Defence League is in a position where it can put more people on the street than it's ever been able to. Now, at that moment, we've made this decision. At that moment, rather than riding that wave for the next 12 months and continuing, it's not. People are saying bring a demonstration back to Luton. I don't see it's beneficial now to bring a demonstration back down to Luton. I believe the councils and government have seen a backlash, and to be honest, to get through 4 years without anyone getting seriously injured, and to get that groundswell of anger and frustration, which people have to accept. I condemn people for shouting Allah, Allah, who is Allah, and I condemn people for getting violent on demonstrations. But I understand where the anger and frustration is building, and the more you suppress a voice, the more extreme it will become. So people need to see, which I'm asking all my supporters who have followed me, to put faith in the decision we're making and follow in. I don't believe street protests and the way it's going is the way forward. I believe an opportunity has to be given to see if this can progress, and it can progress to be the debate, instead of being had out on the street, can be had in an arena that it's supposed to be had, where everyone can put what's out on the table and try and work this out in a democratic process. The whole way through this, we've said democracy is the answer, but I believe our political leaders and this whole era that we're in, which we are completely stuck in, of political correctness and cultural sensitivity that has seen the facilitation of race. It's seen everything, because people are so scared of being called a racist. What has to happen is that Muslims in this country have to listen to what we're saying. I don't hate Muslims, but if we're going to pick fault at Islamist ideologies, we can't be called Islamophobic all the time. You can't call everybody a racist. You can't shut down that debate. And for me, I see this as a huge, not just a statement. I'm dreading going home. I feel like I'm in a bubble, and I don't even think really I'll see the consequences of this for the next couple of days.
Dominic, go for IB Times. Tommy, is it not the case of being forced out of the organisation you founded because you failed to control the supporters? And how dangerous are those elements in the organisation which are now gathered under the EDL banner?
Look, I haven't been forced out. If you look at the reaction from the English Defence League today, they're devastated. The supporters are devastated. There's no forcing out. There's been no call for me to leave. Yeah? And when you talk about how dangerous are they, we need to put it into perspective. We've had 341 Muslims arrested for terrorism in the last 4 years. We've had no English Defence League supporters. So when you put it into perspective of danger, which is what I keep saying, the biggest threat is the Islamist ideology. Yes, rogue elements, far-right extremists, which I've tried to warn as well. I've said within 5-10 years, what you will have is people in this country blowing things up. Yeah? Breivik-style things. It's coming, okay? Unless this problem gets tackled. And that's not me wishing it or wanting it. It's the last thing I want. But I know it's going to be painful, and I pray that the English Defence League stays to the core root of how it was founded and the foundations we built on. But it's going to be very painful to watch possibly what becomes of it.
Tommy Robinson made his name with the English Defence League. Those days are over, and so, he says, are the hooligan tactics.
We made errors in the past. We were a reaction. It was born out of passion, the English Defence League was. I've grown up a lot and I see the way it needs to go. We need to appeal to the masses. This has to be an organisation that people feel proud to say, yeah, I support what they're doing.
His rise to prominence was due to his powers of organisation and public speaking. But his logic is less clear.
Every single town and city that has a Muslim community has a segregated Islamic ghetto. There's no...
That is rubbish.
There is no...
That is rubbish.
No, it's not. There's no integration in this town. There's none. There is between all the other cultures and colours and faiths. There's none with the Muslims and non-Muslims. There's none. We're two polarised communities. It hasn't worked. And Angela Merkel also said multiculturalism has failed. David Cameron said the same. Angela Merkel has single-handedly destroyed Europe. Look at all the things that she's brought upon her people, her country's people.
In my lifetime, National Front been and gone, BNP been and gone, EDL been and gone. Pegida's going to be the same.
They're very different organisations. You can't even put all them into the same bracket.
I think you can.
No, then you can't, because the National Front...
Minimal electoral impact.
We're not on about it. I don't want to be an electoral impact with Pegida. It's not a political organisation. There's nothing the government fear more than a mass movement of people, and that's what we're looking to create.
His departure marked the beginning of the end for the EDL as a significant political force. Without Mr. Robinson's leadership, the group splintered into various fractions, each with its own agenda, and its influence gradually faded. Mr. Robinson's decision to leave the EDL was seen by many as a pragmatic move, one that allowed him to distance himself from the group's increasingly toxic reputation while preserving his own credibility. However, it also marked a new chapter in his life, one in which he could seek to reinvent himself as a mainstream political figure, albeit one still deeply rooted in the controversial rhetoric that had defined his career. The years between 2009 and 2013 were transformative for Tommy Robinson. During this period, he went from being a local activist in Luton to a national figure whose name was synonymous with far-right extremism. The formation of the EDL provided Mr. Robinson with a platform he needed to spread his message, but it also exposed to him the harsh realities of leading a movement characterised by violence and internal strife. Mr. Robinson's rise to infamy was not without its costs. His involvement with the EDL brought him into a frequent conflict with the police, leading to numerous arrests and convictions. It also made him a deeply polarising figure, admired by some and reviled by many. Yet, despite these challenges, Mr. Robinson emerged from this period with a heightened sense of purpose and determination to continue his fight, even if it meant doing so outside the confines of the EDL. As Tommy Robinson's public profile grew, so too did his criminal record. Over the years, Mr. Robinson has accumulated a significant number of criminal convictions, each of which paints a picture of a man who is not only willing to challenge the police, but also often seems revel in doing so. While some of his supporters view his repeated run-ins with the police as evidence of a biased system determined to silence him, others see his criminal record as a reflection of his reckless and confrontational nature. This chapter delves into Mr. Robinson's criminal activities, examining the specifics of his offences, the legal battles they sparked, and the broader implications of his actions. Mr. Robinson's first major brush with the law occurred in 2005, when he was convicted of assaulting an off-duty police officer. The incident took place outside a nightclub in Luton, where Mr. Robinson had been involved in a dispute with his then-girlfriend. The officer, who intervened in an attempt to defuse the situation, was attacked by Mr. Robinson, resulting in a 12-month prison sentence. This conviction marked the beginning of a long series of legal troubles for Mr. Robinson and established a pattern of behaviour that would continue throughout his life, a tendency to react with violence and defiance when challenged. In the years that followed, Mr. Robinson was frequently involved in public order offences, particularly in connection with his activities as leader of the English Defence League EDL. His participation in and organisation of protest often led to violent clashes with police and counter-protesters. One of the most notorious of these incidences occurred in September 2009 in Birmingham, when an EDL protest escalated into a full-blown riot. The violence resulted in multiple injuries and over 90 arrests, with Mr. Robinson himself being detained for his role in the chaos.
Police have condemned protesters after violence on the streets of Birmingham. Police blame the English Defence League, which campaigns against Islamic fundamentalism, for the trouble. The group has told Midlands Today they won't be returning to Birmingham for a third time. Here's our correspondent, Peter Wilson.
Heading for trouble, the streets of Birmingham were soon filled with hate.
Nazi scum off our streets!
Anti-fascist groups came face to face with the English Defence League. New Street and surrounding areas became a battle zone. Everywhere the police stood in the middle. Some streets were sealed off. These were the first of 90 arrests. Saturday shoppers and tourists gazed in amazement.
It's not great, is it? But we don't really know what's going on.
I heard vile chanting against Muslims. Even the propaganda posters didn't always match the official line of the EDL.
All we want is people to stop having terrorists in this country.
On street corners, tensions bubbled away as young Asian youths flexed their muscles in the face of shaven-headed men.
These people now, yeah, they're coming, what they do, kick us out of the country, our own country. Do you know what I mean? We ain't caused no harm today. We're here protesting. You see any violence? Anywhere? Nah.
Who are the English Defence League? Some members are said to be linked to far-right groups. Few are willing to talk. One man from Carlisle agreed to speak to me.
Hanging homosexuals from cranes, that's the sort of thing you expect real fascists to do. So I don't regard myself as far-right. I regard myself as hard-line anti-Islamist, yes. But I certainly don't agree that I'm far-right. I'm far from it.
This was a massive police operation. 5 forces had their riot-trained teams in Birmingham, including the Metropolitan Police. They were gathering intelligence. Today, the police said that the English Defence League would not be welcomed back.
If we saw the EDL arriving in our city again, you may saw them on Saturday wearing EDL T-shirts. If they're identifying as a group coming into protest, we now feel we can arrest them for preventing a breach of the peace.
The cost in police resources has been enormous.
Mr. Robinson's approach to these confrontations was always combative. He often positioned himself at the forefront of the EDL's actions, leading marches, giving inflammatory speeches, and engaging directly with both supporters and opponents. His willingness to incite and participate in violence became a hallmark of his public persona, reinforcing his image as a man who would stop at nothing to defend his beliefs. In addition to his public order offences, Mr. Robinson has also been convicted of several fraud-related crimes. In 2012, he was sentenced to 10 months in prison for using a false passport to enter the United States. Mr. Robinson had been banned from entering the country due to his criminal record, but attempted to circumvent this by using a friend's passport. He was caught upon arrival in New York and promptly deported back to the UK, where he faced charges for the offence. The passport fraud case was significant not just because of the crime itself, but it also highlighted Mr. Robinson's willingness to flout the law in pursuit of his goals. His actions were seen by many as reckless, particularly given his already high-profile status and likelihood of being caught. Mr. Robinson, however, dismissed the seriousness of the crime, framing it as necessary measure to spread his message internationally. More damaging to Mr. Robinson's credibility, however, was his 2014 conviction for mortgage fraud. In this case, Mr. Robinson was found guilty of conspiring to obtain a mortgage by deception. He had lied about his income to secure a £160,000 mortgage, a crime that resulted in an 18-month prison sentence. The fraud case was a significant blow to Mr. Robinson's reputation, particularly amongst those who had supported him as a voice of integrity against a corrupt establishment. It also underscored a pattern of dishonesty and opportunism that many critics argued was at the heart of Mr. Robinson's character. One of the most high-profile legal battles involving Tommy Robinson has been his repeated brushes with contempt of court. These cases have drawn significant media attention and have become a focal point for debates about free speech, the right to a fair trial, and the limits of legal activism. The most notable of these cases occurred in May 2018, where Mr. Robinson was arrested and subsequently jailed for live streaming outside a court in Leeds.
Can you get me a solicitor? Can you get me a solicitor? You just turn off your live stream. Can you get me a solicitor?
The case involved a group of Muslim men who were on trial for committing some of the most heinous and depraved acts imaginable against children, and Mr. Robinson's actions were deemed to have potentially prejudiced the trial. He was found guilty of contempt of court and sentenced to 13 months in prison, although this sentence was later reduced upon appeal.
The appellant Stephen Yaxley Lennon was committed to prison for 13 months for contempt of court at Leeds Crown Court on the 25th of May 2018. The period of imprisonment included the activation of a 3-month suspended committal order made in Canterbury Crown Court a year earlier on the 22nd of May 2017 for contempt of court. The appellant initially appealed to this court only against the sentence imposed upon him in Leeds, but later he applied for extensions of time to enable him to appeal against the findings of contempt made against him in both Crown Courts. For the reasons given in the judgment which we now hand down, we refuse the extension of time in relation to the proceedings in Canterbury Crown Court. The appellant unequivocally accepted that he was in contempt of court in a way clearly identified to him, and the procedure that was followed was fair. We grant the extension of time in respect of the finding of contempt in Leeds Crown Court and allow the appeal against that finding for the detailed reasons set out in the judgment, essentially because the process was flawed. We direct that the matter be remitted for a rehearing before the Recorder of London, sitting at the Central Criminal Court, as soon as reasonably possible. In the meantime, the appellant will be released from custody.
Mr. Robinson's supporters rallied around him, arguing that his imprisonment was an attempt to silence him and pervert the exposure of issues surrounding Muslim grooming gangs. They portrayed him as a martyr of free speech, unjustly persecuted by a system that sought to protect political correctness at the expense of justice. However, legal experts and critics pointed out that Mr. Robinson's actions were not about free speech, but about representing the rule of law. Contempt of court is a serious offence because it undermines the integrity of the judicial system process. By live streaming outside the court and commenting on the ongoing trial, Mr. Robinson risked prejudicing the case and denying the defendants their right to a fair trial. The case highlighted the dangers of populist activism that disregards legal protocols and the potential consequences of such actions. Mr. Robinson's confrontational style had also led to several legal actions against him for harassment and defamation. One of the most significant of these cases involved Syrian refugee Jamal Hijazi, who sued Mr. Robinson for defamation in 2020. Mr. Robinson had posted a series of videos and comments online accusing Mr. Hijazi of being involved in violent behaviour at school, claims that were proven to be false. The court ruled in Mr. Hijazi's favour, ordering Mr. Robinson to pay £100,000 in damages. This defamation case was a clear example of the dangers inherent in Mr. Robinson's style of activism, which often involved making inflammatory and unverified claims about individuals or groups. While his rhetoric may resonate with his followers, it has also led to serious legal consequences, highlighting the fine line between free speech and defamation. In addition to defamation, Mr. Robinson has also faced accusations of harassment. His confrontational approach often involves directly targeting individuals, whether they be journalists, politicians, or ordinary citizens. These actions have resulted in legal complaint and further damaged his public image, portraying him as a bully who uses intimidation and harassment to silence his critics. The cumulative effect of Mr. Robinson's criminal activities has had significant legal and social implications. On a personal level, his repeated convictions have resulted in numerous prison sentences, legal fees, and damaged reputations. While some of his supporters continue to view him as a victim of a biased system, others have become disillusioned with his increasingly erratic behaviour and legal troubles. On a broader level, Mr. Robinson's actions have sparked important debates about the limits of free speech, the role of the media in reporting on sensitive issues, and the responsibilities of activists who seek to challenge the status quo. His contempt of court cases in particular have highlighted the tension between the right to report on public interest issues and the need to protect the integrity of the judicial system. Mr. Robinson's legal battles have also had a significant impact on his financial status. The defamation case involving Jamal Hijazi, for example, left Mr. Robinson with a substantial financial burden, leading to claims that he was bankrupt. This in turn has affected his ability to continue his activism at the same level, forcing him to seek alternative means of financing his activities. Tommy Robinson's criminal record is a testament to a life defined by defiance and confrontation. From his early conviction for assaulting a police officer to his more recent legal battles over defamation and contempt of court, law. Mr. Robinson has consistently positioned himself as a man who is willing to challenge the law in pursuit of his own goals, while his supporters see this as evidence of his commitment to speaking truth to power. His critics argue that it reflects a pattern of recklessness, dishonesty, and a disregard for the rule of law. As we move forward, we will explore how Mr. Robinson's criminal activities and legal troubles have shaped his public image and influenced the trajectory of his life. We will also examine the broader implications of his actions both for himself and for the society that he continues to polarize. As Tommy Robinson's public profile grew, so too did the clarity and articulation of his agenda. What began as a local reaction to perceived injustices in Luton expanded into a broader narrative about the dangers of Islam, the failures of multiculturalism, and the erosion of British identity. Mr. Robinson's agenda was not merely a personal vendetta. It became a rallying cry for a segment of the population that felt ignored by mainstream politics and threatened by the rapid social changes taking place in the United Kingdom. In this chapter, we will explore the key components of Mr. Robinson's agenda, analyse how he framed his arguments, and examine the influence he has wielded over both his supporters and the broader public discourse. We will also delve into the connections between Mr. Robinson and other far-right figures, as well as the role of social media in amplifying his message. At the core of Mr. Robinson's agenda is an overwhelming opposition to Islam, which he portrays as incompatible with Western value and a direct threat to British society. This narrative has been a consistent theme throughout his activism, from his early days with the English Defence League (EDL) to his later endeavours as a political commentator and author. Mr. Robinson's critique of Islam is often framed around specific issues, such as the alleged failure of Muslim communities to integrate into British society, the supposed prevalence of extremism within these communities, and the occurrence of crimes such as grooming gangs. He has frequently pointed to high-profile cases involving Muslim offenders as evidence of a broader cultural problem, using these incidences to support his claims that Islam poses an existential threat to the UK. One of Mr. Robinson's most infamous slogans, "There is no such thing as moderate Islam," encapsulates his belief that Islam, by its very nature, is extremist, and even Muslims who do not engage in violent acts are complicit in perpetrating an ideology that he views as dangerous. This rhetoric has drawn widespread criticism from those who argue that it unfairly stigmatizes an entire religion and its adherents, contributing to Islamophobia and social division. However, Mr. Robinson's supporters see his stance on Islam as a courageous stance against political correctness and the unwillingness of a political establishment to address what they perceive as genuine concerns about the integration of Muslim communities. For these followers, Mr. Robinson's willingness to speak out against Islam, despite the legal and social consequences, is seen as evidence of his integrity and commitment to protecting British values. Mr. Robinson's opposition to Islam is closely tied to his broader critique of multiculturalism, which he views as a failed social experiment that has led to the fragmentation of British society. He argues that the policy of multiculturalism, which encourages the coexistence of diverse cultures within a single society, has resulted in the creation of segregated communities that do not share a common set of values or loyalties. According to Mr. Robinson, multiculturalism has allowed radical ideologies to flourish within these communities, particularly in Muslim majority areas, where he claims that British laws and customs are often ignored in favour of religious or cultural practices that are incompatible with the broader society. He has frequently cited examples of what he describes as no-go zones in British city areas, where he claims non-Muslims and even law enforcement are not welcome, as evidence of the dangers of multiculturalism. Mr. Robinson's critique extends beyond just the Muslim community. He has also expressed concerns about immigration in general, arguing that large-scale influx of immigrants has diluted British culture and created economic and social pressures that are unsustainable. This anti-immigration stance is a common thread among far-right movements in Europe and has resonated with those who feel that their national identity is under threat. Critics of Mr. Robinson's views on multiculturalism argue that his rhetoric is simplistic and ignores the complexities of integration and cultural exchange. They point out that his claims about no-go zones and the incompatibility of certain cultures with British values are not supported by evidence and contribute to fear-mongering and division. Another central pillar of Mr. Robinson's agenda is his advocacy for free speech, particularly as it relates to the ability to criticise Islam and immigration policies without facing legal repercussions or social ostracism. Mr. Robinson often frames his legal battles, particularly those involving charges of hate speech or contempt of court, as attacks on his right to speak freely about issues that he believes are deliberately being suppressed by the government and the media. Mr. Robinson's stance on free speech is closely linked to his broader critique of what he sees as the establishment, a term he uses to describe the political, media and judicial elites, who he claims are intent on silencing dissent and imposing a politically correct agenda on the country. He argues that these elites are more interested in protecting minority groups and maintaining social harmony than addressing the legitimate concerns of ordinary Britons. This framing of the issue has resonated with many who feel like their voices are being ignored or censored in the public debate. Mr. Robinson's narrative positions him as a martyr of free speech, someone who is willing to suffer legal consequences in order to speak the truth as he sees it. This has helped to build a loyal fan base of supporters who see themselves as engaged in a broader struggle against censorship and the erosion of civil liberties. However, critics argue that Mr. Robinson's actions often cross the line from free speech into hate speech, incitement, and defamation. They point out that freedom of expression comes with responsibilities, particularly when it comes to avoiding harm to others and maintaining the integrity of the judicial process. Mr. Robinson's frequent legal troubles, they argue, are not evidence of a crackdown on free speech, but rather the result of his disregard for the law. Mr. Robinson's rhetoric has had a significant influence on the public discourse in the UK, particularly amongst those who share his concerns about immigration, Islam, and multiculturalism. His ability to articulate these issues in a way that resonates with a certain segment of the population has made him a key figure in the rise of the far-right movement in Britain. One of the ways in which Mr. Robinson's influence can be measured is by the extent to which his language and ideas have been adopted by other far-right figures and movements. Mr. Robinson has often collaborated with or been endorsed by prominent far-right personalities both in the UK and internationally, and his ideas have found a receptive audience amongst those who feel that mainstream politics no longer represent their interests. Mr. Robinson's use of social media has also played a crucial role in spreading his message. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter and YouTube have allowed him to reach a global audience, bypassing traditional media outlets that he claims are biased against him. His online presence is characterized by a blend of personal storytelling, political commentary and proactive statements, all designed to engage and mobilize his followers. However, Mr. Robinson's influence is not limited to his supporters. His rhetoric has also had a significant impact on the broader public debate, particularly around issues of free speech, extremism, and the role of the media. Mr. Robinson's ability to generate headlines and provoke reactions from both supporters and critics has ensured that his ideas remain a part of the national conversation, even as his actions continue to polarize public opinion. Mr. Robinson's influence extends beyond the UK, as he has cultivated connections with far-right figures and movements across Europe and the United States. These connections have helped to amplify his message and position him as part of a broader international network of right-wing activists who share similar concerns about immigration, Islam, and the preservation of national identity. One of the most notable of these connections is Mr. Robinson's relationship with the American far-right media outlet Breitbart News and its former executive chairman, Steve Bannon. Mr. Bannon, who played a key role in the election of Donald Trump and the promotion of nationalist movements globally, has publicly supported Mr. Robinson and praised him as a fighter for the people. This endorsement has helped raise Mr. Robinson's public profile internationally and has provided him with a platform to reach an American audience. Mr. Robinson has also forged ties with European far-right parties and movements, such as the French National Rally, formerly known as the National Front, the Dutch Party for Freedom led by Geert Wilders, and the Italian League Party under Matteo Salvini. Those connections have allowed Mr. Robinson to participate in international conferences, rallies and media events, where he has shared his experiences and strategies with like-minded activists. These international connections have not only extended Mr. Robinson's influence, but have also helped to legitimise his agenda in the eyes of his supporters. By aligning himself with prominent figures in the global far-right movement, Mr. Robinson has been able to position himself as part of a larger struggle against what he sees as forces of globalisation, multiculturalism and political correctness. Social media has been a crucial tool in Mr. Robinson's rise to prominence. From the early days of the EDL to his more recent activities as an independent activist and commentator, Mr. Robinson has used platforms like Facebook, Twitter and YouTube to spread his message, organise events and engage directly with his followers. Mr. Robinson's social media strategy is characterised by its directness and accessibility. Unlike traditional media, which often portrays him in a negative light, social media allows Mr. Robinson to present himself in his own terms. He frequently uses live streaming and video posts to share his thoughts on current events, respond to critics, and provide updates on his legal battles and activism. This unfiltered access to his audience has been a key factor in maintaining his relevance and influence. However, Mr. Robinson's use of social media has also been controversial. His posts are often inflammatory and provocative, designed to elicit strong reactions from both supporters and opponents. This approach has led to multiple suspensions and bans from various social media platforms, which Mr. Robinson and his followers have framed as further evidence of a conspiracy to silence him. Despite these challenges, Mr. Robinson has continued to find ways to reach his audience. He has used alternative platforms such as Telegram and Parler, which are less likely to censor his content. He has encouraged his followers to support him through crowdfunding and subscription-based services. This adaptability has allowed Mr. Robinson to maintain a strong online presence, even as the major platforms have sought to limit his reach. The impact of Mr. Robinson's agenda on British society is complex and multifaceted. On one hand, his rhetoric has undoubtedly contributed to the rise of far-right sentiment in the UK, emboldening those who share his views and inspiring a new generation of activists who see him as a role model. His influence can be seen in the proliferation of far-right groups and movements that have adopted similar language and tactics. On the other hand, Mr. Robinson's activities have also sparked significant resistance. Anti-racist and anti-fascist groups have mobilised in response to his actions, leading to large-scale counter-protests and campaigns aimed at countering his influence. Mr. Robinson's legal battles and public controversies have also prompted widespread debates about the limits of free speech, the role of the media, and the responsibilities of public figures. Mr. Robinson's influence has also had a polarising effect on British politics. His critiques of Islam, multiculturalism and immigration have formed mainstream politicians to address these issues, often in ways that reflect the growing concerns of a segment of the population. However, this has also led to increased tensions and divisions within British society, as Mr. Robinson's rhetoric has often been seen as inflammatory rather than addressing the underlying issue. Mr. Robinson's agenda, characterised by his opposition to Islam, critique of multiculturalism, defence of free speech, and use of social media, has left a lasting mark on British society. His influence extends beyond his immediate followers, shaping a broader public debate and forcing politicians, journalists, and ordinary citizens to confront uncomfortable questions about identity, integration, and the limits of free expression. While Mr. Robinson remains a deeply controversial figure, there is no denying that his ideas have resonated with a significant portion of the population. His ability to articulate the frustrations and fears of those who feel left behind by social and political changes have ensured that his message continues to be heard, even as he faces legal challenges and social opposition. As we continue to explore Mr. Robinson's life and influence, we will see how his agenda has evolved over time and how he has adapted to the changing political landscape. We will also examine the long-term impact on his rhetoric on British society and the challenges it poses for those who seek to build a more inclusive and coercive nation. As Tommy Robinson's influence grew, so did the consequences of his actions. While his rise to prominence brought him a dedicated following and a significant platform, it also led to a series of personal, legal and social repercussions that have shaped his life and career. This chapter explores the fallout from Mr. Robinson's activism, focusing on the impact it has had on his personal life, his supporters, his critics, and British society as a whole. Mr. Robinson's journey is a complex one, marked by victories and setbacks, moments of triumph, and periods of intense scrutiny. As we delve into these consequences, we will examine how Mr. Robinson has navigated the challenges he had faced, and what these challenges reveal about the broader social and political landscape in the UK. Mr. Robinson's activism has come at significant personal costs. Over the years, he has faced multiple arrests, convictions, and prison sentences, each of which has taken a toll on his personal life. The strain on his family has been immense, with his wife and children frequently thrust into the public eye as a result of his actions. The constant legal battles and the threat of imprisonment have also placed a significant burden on Mr. Robinson's mental and emotional well-being. One of the most significant personal repercussions for Mr. Robinson has been the financial cost of his activism. Legal fees, fines and damages from defamation cases have drained his resources, leading to claims of bankruptcy. The financial strain has forced Mr. Robinson to rely heavily on crowdfunding and donations from his supporters, further entrenching his dependence on his base and limiting his ability to pursue mainstream opportunities. Despite these challenges, Mr. Robinson has remained defiant, often framing his financial and personal struggles as further evidence of his martyrdom for the cause. This narrative has resonated with his personal supporters, who see his sacrifices as proof of his commitment to the fight against what they perceive as injustices of the establishment. Mr. Robinson's followers, many whom are drawn from the working class community that feel neglected by mainstream politics, have also faced significant consequences as a result of their association to him. Participation in EDL protests and other demonstrations organised by Mr. Robinson has often led to arrests, job losses and social ostracism. The stigma of being associated with a far-right figure like Mr. Robinson has made it difficult for many of his supporters to maintain stable employment or social relationships. For some, the fallout has been even more severe. Instances of violence and criminal activity linked to EDL events have led to long-term legal consequences for those involved. Mr. Robinson's rhetoric, which often encourages direct action and confrontation, has sometimes inspired followers to engage in behaviour that has had serious personal and legal repercussions. Despite these challenges, Mr. Robinson's supporters remain fiercely loyal. They see the personal sacrifices they have made as necessary for the greater good, and they continue to rally around Mr. Robinson, viewing him as a leader who is willing to face the same risks and hardships that they do. This loyalty is a testament to Mr. Robinson's ability to inspire a deep sense of belonging and purpose amongst his followers, even in the face of significant adversity. The fallout from Mr. Robinson's activism has not been limited to his supporters. It has also had a profound impact on those who oppose him. Anti-racist and anti-fascist groups have mobilised in response to Mr. Robinson's actions, leading to a series of high-profile counter-protests, campaigns and legal challenges aimed at curbing his influence. These efforts have been driven by a deep concern about the rise of far-right extremism in the UK and the potential for Mr. Robinson's rhetoric to incite violence and hatred. Critics of Mr. Robinson have also been active in the media, using platforms like television, radio and print to challenge his narrative and expose the dangers of his ideology. Documentaries, investigative reports and opinion pieces have sought to counter Mr. Robinson's claim and present a more nuanced view of the issues he raises. These efforts have played a crucial role in shaping public perception of Mr. Robinson, particularly amongst those who might be swayed by his arguments. However, the response from critics has not been without its challenges. Mr. Robinson's ability to frame himself as a victim of censorship and political persecution has resonated with many, leading to accusations that the efforts to silence him are only serving to strengthen his cause. This has created a complex dynamic in which attempts to counter Mr. Robinson's influence often end up in amplifying his message and reinforcing his position as a martyr for free speech. One of the most significant areas of fallout from Mr. Robinson's activity activities has been in the legal realm. As previously discussed, Mr. Robinson has faced numerous legal battles, from convictions for public order offences and fraud to high-profile contempt of court cases. These legal challenges have had a profound impact on Mr. Robinson's life, both in terms of direct consequences of imprisonment and fines, and in the way that they have shaped his public image. Mr. Robinson's legal troubles have also had broader implications for the UK legal system. His contempt of court cases in particular has sparked important debates about the balance between free speech and the right to a fair trial. The media coverage of these cases has highlighted the challenges faced by the judiciary in dealing with high-profile figures like Mr. Robinson, who used their platform to challenge legal norms and push the boundaries of acceptable behaviour. In addition to these high-profile cases, Mr. Robinson has also faced numerous other legal challenges, including defamation suits, harassment claims, and breaches of bail conditions. Each of these cases has added the cumulative burden on Mr. Robinson, creating a legal quagmire that has consumed much of his time and resources. Beyond the personal and legal fallout, Mr. Robinson's activities have had significant social and political consequences. His rhetoric has contributed to the polarisation of British society, increasing tensions between different communities and fueling the far-right sentiment. The public debate sparked by Mr. Robinson's activism forced politicians, journalists, and ordinary citizens to confront uncomfortable questions about identity, immigration, and the limits of free speech. Mr. Robinson's influence has also had a notable impact on British politics. His critique of Islam, multiculturalism, and the political establishment have had a receptive audience amongst those that feel that mainstream parties are not addressing their concerns. This has contributed to the rise of populist and far-right movements in the UK, who have sought to capitalise off the same issues that Mr. Robinson has highlighted. However, Mr. Robinson's impact on politics has also been a double-edged sword. While he has succeeded in bringing certain issues to the forefront of public debate, he has also been a decisive figure, alienating potential allies and limiting his ability to build a broad-based movement. His confrontational style and frequent legal troubles have made it difficult for him to be taken seriously by mainstream politicians and media, limiting his influence to the fringes of the political spectrum. As Mr. Robinson's legal battles continue and his influence waxes and wanes, the question of his long-term legacy remains an open one. Will he be remembered as a champion of free speech and a defender of the British values, or as a decisive figure who contributed to the far-right extremism in the UK? The answer to this question will depend largely on how his story is told in the years to come and how the issues he has raised continue to evolve. One of the key factors in shaping Mr. Robinson's legacy will be the ongoing debate about the role of free speech in a democratic society. Mr. Robinson has positioned himself as a martyr for free speech, arguing that his legal troubles are a result of a concerted effort to silence him. This narrative has resonated with many, particularly in the area where concerns about censorship and the suppression of dissenting voices are increasingly prominent. However, critics argue that Mr. Robinson's actions go beyond the bounds of free speech and enter into the realm of hate speech, incitement, and defamation. They contend that his legacy should not be seen as one of a principled resistance, but one of reckless disregard for the consequences of his words and action. This debate will be central to how Mr. Robinson is remembered and will likely continue long after his legal battles are over. The fallout from Mr. Robinson's activism is complex and multifaceted, reflecting the broader social and political tensions that his rhetoric has both exploited and exuberated. His personal and financial struggles, the impact on his supporters, the reaction from his critics, and the legal and social consequences of his actions all contribute to a portrait of a man who is as polarizing as he is influential. As we move forward, we will continue to explore the various dimensions of Mr. Robinson's influence and the broader implications of his activities for British society. While the full impact of Mr. Robinson's legacy may not be clear for some time, it is evident that he has played a significant role in shaping the public discourse on some of the most contentious issues of our time. Tommy Robinson's rise to prominence has been as much as a product of media coverage and public reaction as it has been of his own actions. Throughout his career, the way he has been portrayed by the media and perceived by the public has played a crucial role in shaping his influence, his agenda, and his legacy. This chapter delves into the multifaceted relationship between Mr. Robinson, the media, and the public, exploring how different narratives have been constructed around him and the impact these narratives have had on his influence and public perception. From sensationalist headlines to in-depth documentary, Mr. Robinson has been both vilified and valorized by different segments of the media. Public reaction to him has been equally polarized, with some viewing him as a truth teller and others as a dangerous agitator. This chapter will explore those dynamics, examining the strategies Mr. Robinson has used to manipulate media coverage, the ways in which different media outlets have approached his story, and the broader social implications of how he has been portrayed. The mainstream media has played a significant role in shaping public perception of Tommy Robinson. From the early days of the English Defence League (EDL), Mr. Robinson has been a fixture in British media, often featured in news reports, interviews and documentaries. The coverage has been overwhelmingly negative, with many outlets portraying Mr. Robinson as a far-right extremist, a provocateur and a criminal. Newspapers such as The Guardian, The Independent and The Mirror have consistently highlighted Mr. Robinson's criminal record, his association with far-right groups, and the violent nature of many EDL demonstrations. These outlets have framed Mr. Robinson as a symbol of the dangers posed by rising populism and far-right extremism in the UK, often linking him to the broader trends such as Brexit and the global resurgence of nationalist movement. Television networks like the BBC and Channel 4 have produced several documentaries and investigative reports on Mr. Robinson, exploring his background, his beliefs, and the impact of his activism. These programs have often sought to expose the darker side of Mr. Robinson's activity, including his connections to violent extremists and social harm caused by his rhetoric. Despite this largely negative coverage, Mr. Robinson has proven adept to using the media to his advantage. He frequently appears on talk shows and news programs where he portrays himself as a victim of the media bias and censorship. By engaging directly with hostile interviewers, Mr. Robinson has been able to position himself as a fighter for free speech and a defender of ordinary Britons against the perceived elitism and mainstream media. This narrative has resonated with his supporters, who often view media criticism of Mr. Robinson as evidence of a concerted effort to silence dissenting voices. While the mainstream media has largely been critical of Mr. Robinson, alternative media outlets and social media platforms have provided him with a more sympathetic audience. Online platforms such as YouTube, Facebook and Twitter have been instrumental in Mr. Robinson's ability to bypass traditional media gatekeepers and communicate directly with his followers. Mr. Robinson's use of social media is characterized by its immediacy and accessibility. He frequently posts live videos, updates and commentary on current events, often framing his posts as an alternative to the fake news produced by mainstream outlets. This direct engagement with his audience has allowed Mr. Robinson to cultivate a loyal following that sees him as a truth teller in a world of media manipulation. Alternative media outlets, particularly those on the right, have also played a key role in amplifying Mr. Robinson's message. Websites like Breitbart News, Rebel Media, and various far-right blogs have provided Mr. Robinson with a platform to articulate his views on Islam, immigration, and the British political establishment. These outlets often portray Mr. Robinson as a courageous figure standing up against political correctness and the erosion of national identity, and they have helped to legitimize his agenda in the eyes of his supporters. Mr. Robinson's relationship with social media has not been without its challenges. He has faced multiple bans and suspensions from platforms like Twitter, Facebook and YouTube, often for violating terms of service related to hate speech and indictment. However, these actions have only reinforced Mr. Robinson's narrative of being persecuted by powerful elites, and he has used these bans as a rallying point to galvanise his supporters. The role of alternative media and social media in Mr. Robinson's rise highlights the changing dynamics of how public figures can influence public opinion. In an era where traditional media is often viewed as suspicious, figures like Mr. Robinson have been able to leverage the democratizing power of the internet to build significant followings and shape public discourse outside of mainstream channels. Public reaction to Tommy Robinson has been deeply divided, reflecting broader social tensions around the issues of immigration, Islam, and national identity. For his supporters, Mr. Robinson is a hero who speaks truth to power, someone who is willing to risk his freedom and reputation to address issues that the political and media establishment refuse to confront. These supporters often come from working class backgrounds and feel that their concerns about impacts on immigration and multiculturalism have been ignored by the political elite. Mr. Robinson's supporters are particularly vocal on social media, where they often share and promote his content, organising events and mobilise around key issues. This online activism has helped to sustain Mr. Robinson's influence, even in the face of legal challenges and media criticism. For many of his followers, Mr. Robinson is more than just a political figure. He is a symbol of resistance against a system they believe has failed them. On the other side of the divide are those who view Mr. Robinson as a dangerous extremist who exploits fear and prejudice for personal gain. Critics argue that his rhetoric has contributed to the rise of Islamophobia and social division in the UK, and they are deeply concerned about the impact of his message on vulnerable communities. For these critics, Mr. Robinson's actions are not just about free speech or defending British values, but stoking hatred and undermining social cohesion. Public opinion polls on Mr. Robinson reflect this polarization. While he has a dedicated base of support, he is also one of the most controversial figures in the British public life. Polls often show a significant percentage of the population holding a negative view of Mr. Robinson, with many seeing him as a symbol of the darker side of British nationalism. The division in public opinion highlights the broader social challenges that Mr. Robinson's rhetoric taps into. Issues of identity, integration, and national sovereignty are deeply contested in the UK, and Mr. Robinson has positioned himself at the centre of these debates. His ability to polarize public opinion speaks to the power of his message and the deep-seated anxieties that it addresses. Over the years, several documentaries and investigative reports have been produced about Tommy Robinson, each offering a different perspective on his life and influences. These documentaries have been important in shaping public understanding of Mr. Robinson, providing an in-depth analysis of his background, beliefs, and the impact of his activism. One of the most notable documentaries is Channel 4's The Real Tommy Robinson, which aired in 2019. The programme provided a comprehensive overview of Mr. Robinson's life, from his early days in Luton to his rise as a leader of the EDL and his subsequent legal battle. The documentary painted a complex picture of Mr. Robinson, highlighting both the legitimate concerns of his supporters and the dangers of his rhetoric, while it also features interviews with former associates, journalists, and members of the Muslim community, offering a balanced view of Mr. Robinson's impact on British society. Another significant documentary is the BBC's Panorama episode titled Tommy Robinson, The Hate I Taught, which focused on the influence Mr. Robinson has had on his followers and the broader far-right movement in the UK. The programme explores how Mr. Robinson's rhetoric has been adopted by other far-right figures and how it has contributed to the normalisation of extremist views in public discourse. These documentaries have been instrumental in challenging the narratives that Mr. Robinson promotes about himself by providing context, evidence, and alternative viewpoints. They have helped to counterbalance the often one-sided portrayal of Mr. Robinson in both mainstream and alternative media. However, these programs have also faced criticism from Mr. Robinson and his supporters, who argue that they are biased and part of a broader effort to discredit him. Tommy Robinson has shown remarkable ability to manipulate media narratives to his advantage. Despite being a frequent target of negative coverage, Mr. Robinson has used this attention to reinforce his image as a defiant underdog standing up against powerful elites. He often claims that the media is part of a coordinated effort to silence him and suppress the truth, a narrative that resonates strongly with his supporters. Mr. Robinson's media strategy is built on several key tactics. First, he frequently engages with hostile media outlets, using these encounters to highlight what he sees as the bias and hypocrisy of the mainstream press. These confrontations are often framed as battles between an ordinary man and the corrupt establishment, reinforcing Mr. Robinson's populist image. Second, Mr. Robinson is adept at using social media to control the narrative around his actions. By posting his own videos, statements and commentary, he's able to present his side of the story directly to his followers without the filter of traditional media. This direct communication has been crucial in maintaining his base of support, even in the face of damaging media reports and legal setbacks. Finally, Mr. Robinson has sought to position himself as a victim of media persecution. He frequently cites negative coverage as negative as evidence that he is being unfairly targeted because of his views, and he uses this narrative to rally his supporters and solicit donations. The victimhood narrative has been particularly effective in galvanizing his base and sustaining his influence. The media's relationship with Tommy Robinson has broader implications for both journalism and society. Mr. Robinson's ability to exploit media coverage and frame himself as a victim highlights the challenges faced by journalists in covering controversial figures. In an era where the traditional media is declining, figures like Mr. Robinson can use claims of bias and censorship to undermine the credibility of the press and build their own platforms. For society, the media's portrayal of Mr. Robinson raises important questions about the role of journalism in a democratic society. How should the media balance the need to report on figures like Mr. Robinson with the risk of amplifying their message? What responsibilities do journalists have in shaping public discourse, particularly when it comes to the issues as sensitive as immigration, Islam, and national identity? These questions are particularly pressing in the context of broader challenges facing the media industry, including the rise of digital platforms and the decline of traditional media outlets, and the increasing polarization of public opinion. Mr. Robinson's story is a case study in the power of media to both shape and be shaped by figures it covers, and it underscores the need for thoughtful, responsible journalism in an age of instant communication and viral content. Mr. Robinson's relationship with the media and the public is a testament to the power of the narrative of shaping public figures and influencing public opinion. Mr. Robinson has skillfully navigated the media landscape, using both traditional and alternative platforms to build his brand and rally his supporters. At the same time, the media's coverage of Mr. Robinson has played a crucial role in defining his public image, both amplifying and challenging his message. As we move forward, it is important to recognise that the story of Tommy Robinson is not just about one man, but about the broader dynamics of media, power, and society in the modern age. The battle for the narrative around Mr. Robinson is a reflection of the larger struggles over identity, belonging, and the truth that are playing out in the UK and beyond. As we near the conclusion of this exploration into the life and influence of Tommy Robinson, it is essential to step back and critically reflect on his legacy. Mr. Robinson's journey from a working class town in Luton to becoming one of the most polarising figures in British society raises profound questions about extremism, free speech, the power of media, and the social fabric of the United Kingdom. This chapter will provide a comprehensive analysis of these themes, considering what Mr. Robinson's life reveals about the state of contemporary Britain and the challenges it faces. Mr. Robinson's story is not just about the man himself, but about the broader social forces that have enabled his rise and sustained his influence. By examining these forces, we can gain a deeper understanding of the underlying tensions in British society and the ways in which they have been both reflected and inflamed by Mr. Robinson's activism. One of the most significant and contentious aspects of Mr. Robinson's legacy is his claim to be a champion of free speech. Throughout his career, Mr. Robinson has consistently framed his legal battles and public confrontations as struggles for the far right to speak openly about issues that others are too afraid or too politically correct to address. The narrative has resonated with many, particularly those who feel that their concerns about immigration, Islam, and multiculturalism have been silenced by mainstream discourse. However, the reality of Mr. Robinson's approach to free speech speech is far more complex. While he has undoubtedly raised important questions about the limits of expression in a democratic society, his actions have often blurred the line between legitimate criticism and hate speech. Mr. Robinson's rhetoric has frequently targeted specific communities, particularly Muslims, in ways that have incited hostility and division. His willingness to engage in defamatory and inflammatory statements has led to significant legal repercussions, raising the questions of where the boundaries of free speech should lie. Mr. Robinson's case highlights the inherent tensions in balancing free speech with the need to protect individuals and communities from harm. While free speech is a cornerstone of democratic society, it is not an absolute right, and it must be weighed against other considerations such as the prevention of hate speech, incitement to violence, and the protection of fair trial rights. Mr. Robinson's legacy forces us to grapple with these difficult questions and to consider how we can protect free expression whilst also maintaining social cohesion and respect for the rules of law. At the heart of Tommy Robinson's agenda is a profound concern with the issues of identity and belonging. His rhetoric often centers on the idea that British identity is under threat from external forces, particularly from the perceived encroachment of Islam and the failure of multiculturalism. For Mr. Robinson and his supporters, this perceived threat is not just about cultural differences, but about the very survival of British values and traditions. Mr. Robinson's focus on identity resonates with a segment of the population that feels disconnected from the changes that have taken place in British society over the last few decades. Economic globalization, mass immigration, and the rise of multiculturalism have all contributed to a sense of dislocation and loss amongst some communities, particularly those in post-industrial areas like Luton. Mr. Robinson's narrative offers these individuals a way to make sense of their experiences and to assert a sense of belonging in a rapidly changing world. However, Mr. Robinson's approach to identity is deeply exclusionary. By framing British identity in narrow ethno-nationalist terms, he effectively marginalises those who do not fit into his vision of what it means to be British. This exclusionary approach has contributed to social division and has made it more difficult for Britain to navigate the challenges of diversity and integration. Mr. Robinson's legacy, therefore, raises important questions about how we define national identity and how we can build a more inclusive sense of belonging in a diverse society. Another critical aspect of Mr. Robinson's legacy is the role of the media in amplifying and at times legitimizing his message. As discussed in previous chapters, Mr. Robinson has skillfully used both mainstream and alternative media to build his platform and spread his ideas. His ability to manipulate media narratives has been a key factor in his rise to prominence and in sustaining his influence over time. The media coverage of Mr. Robinson reflects broader challenges in how we report on extremism and populism. On one hand, the media has a responsibility to inform the public about figures like Mr. Robinson, who have had a significant impact on public discourse. On the other hand, there is a risk that excessive coverage can inadvertently amplify extremist views and lend them undue legitimacy. This balance between these competing imperatives is difficult to strike, and Mr. Robinson's case illustrates the potential pitfalls of media coverage that is either too sensationalistic or too dismissive. Mr. Robinson's legacy thus forces us to reflect on the role of media in shaping public perceptions of extremism and on the ethical responsibilities that journalists have in covering such figures. It also raises questions about the ways in which social media platforms have been used to bypass traditional media gatekeepers, creating new opportunities for extremist voices to reach a broad audience. Mr. Robinson's influence extends beyond his immediate followers. It has a broader impact on British politics. His rhetoric on immigration, Islam, and national identity has tapped into the anxieties that are shared by many, and his critique of the political establishment has resonated with those who feel alienated from mainstream parties. This has contributed to the rise of populist movements in the UK, which have sought to capitalise off the same issues that Mr. Robinson has highlighted. Mr. Robinson's impact on British politics can be seen in a way that mainstream parties have been forced to address the concerns of his supporters, often adopting more hardline stances on immigration assimilation and integration in responses to the rise of populism. However, this has also led to increased polarisation and the entrenchment of divisions within British society. Mr. Robinson's legacy, therefore, is not just about his own actions, but also about the broader political context in which he has operated and in the ways in which his ideas have shaped national conversation. At the same time, Mr. Robinson's diverse tactics and frequent legal troubles have limited his ability to build a broad-based political movement. While he has succeeded in mobilising a dedicated base of support, he has struggled to gain traction in mainstream politics, where his confrontational style and extremist views have made it difficult for him to be taken seriously by the broader electorate. This has led to a situation in which Mr. Robinson remains influential on the fringes of politics, but has been largely marginalised from the corridors of power. One of the most significant social consequences of Tommy Robinson's activism has been the deepening of polarisation and division within British society. Mr. Robinson's rhetoric, which often pits ordinary Britons against Muslim immigrants and the political elite, has contributed to a climate of distrust and hostility. This has been particularly evident in the rise of Islamophobia, as well as in increasing tensions with different communities. Mr. Robinson's influence has also had a broader impact on the social fabric of the UK. His focus on identity and belonging has increased existing divisions and made it more difficult for different communities to find common ground. The social consequences of this polarisation are profound, as they undermine social cohesion and create a more fragmented and divided society. At the same time, Mr. Robinson's activism has also sparked significant resistance. Anti-racist and anti-fascist movements have mobilised in response to his actions, leading to large-scale protests and campaigns aimed at countering his influence. This resistance has been an important counterweight to the rise of far-right sentiment in the UK and has played a crucial role in defending the values of diversity and inclusion. As we reflect on Tommy Robinson's legacy, it is important to consider the lessons that can be drawn from his life and influence. One of the key lessons is the importance of addressing the underlying issues that have fueled Mr. Robinson's rise. Economic inequality, social dislocation, and a sense of cultural loss have all contributed to the appeal of Mr. Robinson's message, and these issues must be addressed if we are to build a more inclusive and coercive society. Another important lesson is the need for responsible media coverage of figures like Mr. Robinson. The media has a crucial role to play in informing the public and holding powerful figures to account, but it must do so in a way that does not inadvertently amplify extremist views. This requires a careful balance between reporting on important issues and avoiding sensationalism or undue focus on fringe figures. Finally, Mr. Robinson's legacy underscores the importance of defending democratic values, including free speech, whilst also recognising the responsibilities that come with these rights. Free speech is a fundamental right, but it must be exercised in a way that does not cause harm to others or undermine social cohesion. This requires a nuanced understanding of the balance between rights and responsibilities and a commitment to upholding the principles of justice and equality. Tommy Robinson's life and activism have left an undeniable mark on British society. His influence extends far beyond his immediate followers, shaping public discourse, media narratives, and political debates. As we conclude the exploration of his life, it is clear that Mr. Robinson's legacy is a complex and incontested one, reflecting the broader challenges facing the UK in an era of rapid social change and growing polarisation. While Mr. Robinson remains a deeply polarising figure, his story offers important insights into the dynamics of extremism, the power of media, and the importance of addressing the underlying social and economic issues that fuel populist movements. As we move forward, it is essential to learn from these lessons and to work towards building a more inclusive, cohesive, and just society. Tommy Robinson's journey from a working class boy in Luton to a divisive national figure is a story that encapsulates many of the most pressing issues of our time. His rise to prominence has been marked by controversy, legal battles, and a relentless pursuit of an agenda that has both resonated with and repelled large segments of the British public. As we bring this exploration of his life to a close, it is important to reflect on the enduring impact of his actions and what they reveal about the state of contemporary Britain. Mr. Robinson has been a polarising force in British society, a man whose name elicits strong reactions from all sides of the political spectrum. To his supporters, he is a truth teller, a man who has dared to speak out against the perceived dangers of Islam and the failures of multiculturalism. They see him as a defender of the British values, willing to sacrifice his personal freedom and reputation to protect his country. To his critics, however, Mr. Robinson represents a darker side of nationalism, a figure whose rhetoric has fueled division, hatred and violence. They view him as a dangerous individual who has exploited legitimate concerns for his own gain, often at the expense of vulnerable communities. His criminal record, his association with far-right groups, and his inflammatory statements have only reinforced their belief that Mr. Robinson is a dangerous influence on British society. Mr. Robinson's story cannot be understood in isolation. It is a reflection of broader societal trends, including the rise of populism, the challenges of integration in a multicultural society, and the role of the media in shaping public discourse. His influence is not just a product of his own actions, but of a complex interplay of social, economic and political forces that have created a fertile ground for his message. The economic dislocation experienced by many working class communities, the anxieties surrounding immigration and cultural change, and the perceived disconnect between ordinary citizens and the political elite have all contributed to the appeal of Mr. Robinson's rhetoric. These are issues that have resonated not just in the UK but across the Western world, fueling the rise of populist movements and challenging the stability of established political systems. Mr. Robinson's legacy also highlights the ongoing challenge of dealing with extremism in a democratic society. His ability to mobilise support, particularly through social media, has shown how extremist views can gain traction in an environment where traditional gatekeepers of information are bypassed. The legal and social consequences of his action underscore the difficulties in balancing the right to free speech with the need to prevent harm and protect public order. The rise of figures like Mr. Robinson forces us to confront difficult questions about the limits of tolerance, the responsibilities that come with free expression, and the ways in which society can address legitimate grievances without resorting to exclusionary or divisive rhetoric. These are questions that will continue to be relevant as we navigate the complexities of a rapidly changing world. As we look to the future, it is clear that the issue raised by Mr. Robinson's life and activism will continue to shape public debate in the UK and beyond. The challenge for society will be to find ways to address the underlying concerns that have fueled his rise, while rejecting the divisive tactics that have been characterised by his approach. This will require a commitment to building a more inclusive society, one that acknowledges and addresses the fears and anxieties of all its members, while upholding the values of justice, equality, and respect for diversity. It will also require a renewed focus on responsible journalism, thoughtful public discourse, and the protection of democratic principles in the face of growing polarisation. Tommy Robinson's legacy is a complex and contested one. He is a figure who has both shaped and been shaped by the times in which he has lived. His story is a reminder of the power of ideas, the dangers of extremism, and the importance of confronting difficult social issues with nuance, empathy, and a commitment to the common good. As we close this examination of his life, it is clear that Mr. Robinson's influence will continue to be felt for years to come. Whether he is remembered as a hero or a villain, a martyr for free speech, or a provocateur who sought division, his legacy will be determined by the ongoing debates about the issues he has raised and the values that define British society. In the end, the story of Tommy Robinson is not just about one man, but about the society that produced him and the challenges that it faces. It is a story that invites us to reflect on who we are, what we stand for, and how we can build a future that is more just, more inclusive, and more united.
British natives first, and support other countries as well, from America to Israel, Canada to Australia. Now, to say one thing that's a little bit more negative, we have a lot of threats. We got external threats,
we've got the ideological threats, we've got Islamism, everything, wokeism, but I think our worst enemy is ourselves, our own society. A lot of people are complacent. Some people in this
This book has had a
While we do that, the role of the media is important. That's where I come in, and other people like Paul and many others. We spend a lot of time criticizing the corporate media like the BBC, Sky News and all that, but the system plays you all the time. They give you new channels. TV News, the home of free speech, allegedly. Talk TV, these channels, who are supposed to be counter channels, have banned some people on this stage today. There are some good people working there, some good presenters. They don't have the freedom. Ofcom, the advertisers, the corporate money behind it, they don't have flexibility. And that's why we are here. 2CTV is growing because of you guys. Paul is growing because of you guys. This guy. I want to say a massive thank you. Once again, go home, have babies. I'm Bala Tusi, and we are the media.
Fronted a groundbreaking and award-winning documentary, Out of the Shadows, Born from Rape, which highlights the needs and struggles for children born from sexual violence. I've heard a lot over the years about Tommy and his followers, and some of it left me with some concerns. Far-right hooligans and racists was always mentioned, but when I went to Telford, that's not what I found. I spent the day talking to many. They seemed friendly and down to earth, but frustrated that children had been raped and that their lives had meant nothing. They felt they had no voice and no platform, which is what has led me to make this announcement today. Urban School has offered me the opportunity to bring you news reports and documentaries that no one else will, and give you the voice and the platform that you fully deserve. Urban School is run for the people, by the people. This is a new and exciting journey, and I can't wait to bring you all in. If you'd like to continue supporting us, then please head over to urbanschool.news, where you can see all our news and reports. We can't do this without your support. Thank you, and we'll see you all soon. I'm Sammy Woodhouse, reporting from Rotherham.
The most beautiful day.
It's a very difficult subject to talk about. Now, there are millions of people in our country, boys, girls, men and women that have been abused and raped. Now, we don't like to talk about, especially about boys and about men, but we have to, because they're victims too. But I'm here today to talk to you about what's happening to our girls and women in our country. Now, our girls and women are being raped, and some of those women from those rapes are made pregnant, just like I was. Now, some women choose to have a termination, or they go through with the pregnancy, the baby for adoption, which is just too difficult to be able to deal with. But some women like myself have no voice. Their mothers have no voice. And those children also have no legal rights whatsoever. So I need all of you to get involved today to help me change that. Now, I'm calling on government for a couple of things. So, the first thing is, there has never ever by any of our governments been any commissioned research into the needs of women and children born from rape. We need to change that. Support services are not offering support. Professionals are not being trained. How can we support people if we don't know what our needs are? But also, rapists are allowed contact and custody through the family courts to our children. Now, this is a campaign I've been fighting for 6 years. Back in 2018, I started a campaign when I did an exposure against Rodham Council because he invited my rapist into my son's life. Now, so, above on the screens there's a template, and I'm asking every single person here today to contact your MP, to contact the Home Secretary and put a stop to rapists having contact and custody to our children. Now, they are women all over this country that have to sit and have contact with their rapists and play happy families, and we've got to stop that. So, are you all going to get involved? Are you all going to contact your MPs? Are we going to put a stop to rapists having our children? Good. I'm going to go. But before I go, my two children, my daughter-in-law, my grandson, is watching this at home. So I want to say that I love you, and I promise you I'm going to fight for your rights.
Well, I'm Sammy without you. I've watched her start her journalism. She's a natural. I'm sure she's going to bring you some great footage and great documentaries. Who saw my trip to Canada recently? Fuck Justin Trudeau. Whilst I was in Canada, whilst I was in Canada and I was locked in Calgary, I had the wonderful opportunity to meet a lady for a podcast. I sat down with her. She was a mother, a grandmother. She led the trucker convoy through Canada against the forced vaccine mandates. We've got a video to introduce her quickly now.
The small fringe minority.
CTV News has learned Mayor Lynch, one of the founders and organizers of the Freedom Convoy, has been arrested again.
Tomorrow, Lynch testifying at the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act tonight, describing why she decided to act after vaccine mandates were introduced.
Lynch was arrested in Medicine Hat, Alberta for allegedly breaching her bail conditions, so she'll reportedly be brought back to Ottawa to go in front of a judge.
I have the tears of thousands of Canadians on my shoulder who every day told me that we were bringing them home.
Just so you understand, this lady spent over a month in solitary confinement and she's currently awaiting a court case facing 10 years for standing up against forced vaccinations. Tamara Lynch.
In the winter of 2022, a small group of Canadian truckers, along with some volunteers, decided to stand up against government overreach and draconian measures. Now, we witnessed tearing families apart. We lost friends, we lost family. Our loved ones died alone, and we said no more. We drove across Canada to have an audience, to request an audience with our government so that we could have them listen to the other side of the story.
Nice. Yeah, 10 years ago, really.
And I'm going to tell you, if it wasn't for the independent Canadian media and people with cell phones, you would still all think I was a terrorist. The funniest charge against me is intimidation, because as you can see, I don't think I'm very intimidating. Tommy was right. The Crown prosecutor in our case wants 10 years in prison for the crime of mischief. Chris Barber and I are currently going through the longest mischief trial in history. In Canada, mischief would be akin to spray painting on a public wall or something like that. So I brought my freedom guitar. A gentleman showed up at my court case last fall and gave me this guitar. He built it for me. But before I start my song, I just want to tell you a quick joke. Or not a joke, an anecdote about the night that our lawyers flew into Ottawa. We'd been there about a week and we had about 5 lawyers that flew into Ottawa.
Now, 3 years in.
And my good friend, one of the most patient lawyers that helps us to this day, his name is Keith Wilson. And the night that Keith Wilson met me, he didn't know me very well. He says to me, Miss Leach, I don't want to offend you. I really hope you don't find this offensive. But my goal here is that every morning when Justin Trudeau wakes up and throws his legs over the side of the bed, I want the first thing he thinks about to be, what's that little bitch gonna do to me today? Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down. You can send me up at the gates of hell. I won't back down. So I'll stand my ground. Baby, turn around. And I'll keep this world from
This is why I see information as priceless.
But we've always got the COVID inquiry. Your COVID inquiries are a lot of shite. Taxpayers' money and wasting everybody's time. A slap in the wrist does not cut it for this. Too many people died. Not only that, let's talk about the midazolam and morphine that they put in people's bodies during COVID. So unfortunately I fell for this bullshit. But now I can see the truth. And I put a video regarding Tommy. And what I said was, what they try to do this man is ridicule, because you only see a one-sided narrative. Nobody gets to see my story because I get heavily suppressed. I've never been suppressed as much as you, mate. But I would fucking respect you for standing your fucking ground. You know, they all talk about the Great Reset. Well, you know what? Let these words echo around the UK and around the world. Scotland, England, Ireland and Wales and the rest of it. Let's begin the Great Revolution. London, bring them on!
Scotsman brought the fire. Yeah? That is justified anger. He didn't talk there about the problems he's had from the vaccine. It's changed his life, it's ruined his life, and it's ruined so many lives, and it was all a lie. Well done, John. Now, freedom of speech. What does it cost you in your family to speak the truth and speak freely? Probably not as much as it costs some. I sat down with a girl, Mariah Khan, is why I have so much respect for ex-Muslims. Because when they speak out, they risk losing everything. As well as being punishable by death. So we've got an audience, Mariah Khan, introduce yourself. Give her a round of applause, everyone.
I'm going to say a few words nonetheless. So Tommy Robinson once said, courage comes with fear. Pretty deep, right? Because fear pushes each and every one of us outside our comfort zones. And that's why I'm standing talking to you here today. My mum always said, fear is a false emotion appearing real. F-E-A-R. But let's get one thing straight. None of you have come here today based on a false emotion. All I see is a crowd full of people who know exactly what they want and mean what they say. Each and every one of you here today is here because they care for and love this country. And it's time to stand your ground. For the last 15 years or so, whenever Tommy had the guts to say and confront the harsh realities of Islam in this country, his message fell on deaf ears, including mine. Not anymore. I had to leave this beautiful city, the country I was born in, to realize what horrors lie on the other side of various parts of the world. It's only now I realize what must be protected at all costs. It's not racist to care about your country. It's not racist to love your country. It's not far right to care about it. It should not upset the establishment or the media. And, sorry. In fact, it's your prerogative to do so. Most people here today, not least Tommy, would have been called any of these names, probably been cancelled to some varying degrees or at least vilified. I can't speak for everyone here, but what I can say is all I see is good, hard-working, concerned, loyal patriots dedicated to the preservation of their country and culture. And too damn right. Why not? Britain's amazing. This country's amazing. How have we got to the point where even a Union Jack flag on a window is frowned upon? But my entire neighborhood could be swimming in a flurry of red, green, and white in support of Palestine. How did we get here? I'll tell you how. By being one of the most irresponsible and spineless countries in Europe. By embracing the very people who want to bring this nation to its knees. By that, I mean for far too long we've allowed British culture to be pushed around while we bend over backwards to appease others. This needs to stop. We need to treat the degradation of our cities, including London, the spaces, the obsession with diversity, for the sake of it, and a massive no to anyone thinking they can operate parallel legal systems, Sharia or any other, in this country. This is England. We need far less immigration and much more integration. And let me be clear, we have no need for Sharia in this country as we have one of the most esteemed judicial systems in the world. Yes, we have problems, but they're nowhere near on the scale of countries grappling with 7th century tribal desert revenge laws. So thank you, Sharia, but we'll pass.
I'm going to hand the microphone over to Joseph. The stage is yours. Praise God, hallelujah. We got 4 lions behind us on that Nelson's column. But I want to tell you that the 5th lion is standing here today, Tommy Robinson. I want to honour this man. The courage, the bravery and the long suffering he's got for truth. And he's made a way for us to stand here today, praise God. But Great Britain is founded on Christianity. 1,000 years of Christianity in this great nation. Throughout the Old and the New Testament, the canon of scriptures, we see a tale of 2 cities. On the one hand, we have Babylon, and on the other hand, we have Jerusalem. Babylon is when we make a city for our own image. When they built the Tower of Babel, they said, let us make a name for ourselves. But Jerusalem is the blueprint of this country. It is a spiritual state, the kingdom of heaven, here on earth as it is in heaven. Praise God. To transform this country will take 3 things: revival, reformation, and renaissance. It will take a revival in all of your hearts when we turn back to our first love, Jesus Christ. It will take a reformation in our institutions, our government, our classrooms, our police. And it will take a renaissance in our hearts, away from that moral guff that we saw in the Olympics yesterday, and turning back to the likes of Da Vinci and Michelangelo, when we build to glorify God again. I want to lead us in the Lord's Prayer in a second, like you used to do in school assembly back in the day. We're going to bow before our King. If you have space around you, I want you to take the knee, and we're going to bow, we're going to pray the Lord's Prayer together in the presence of God. Hallelujah. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Let us rise up and burn.
Put your hands together one more time for the Lord Jesus Christ. Christ is King. 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 This song was wrote so many years ago by a great British man called William Blake. He talks about the vision of building Jerusalem here in the United Kingdom, and they succeeded. But bit by bit, they tried to dismantle that Jerusalem. But we stand here today and we say no more. this song. It's called Just One Touch from the King. It was written by a man I love signature called Godfrey Basil. And just why it's important to me is because I used to be born in the streets of Manchester, hooked on drugs and alcohol, 2008. Not long ago. And I wandered into Manchester Cathedral one day, and I sat in the corner of that cathedral. God, I didn't believe it. Just one touch from the King changed my life, and to fix the problems in this country, it requires just one touch from the King, and that King is King Jesus.
They shouldn't be allowed to. But I'm not being disrespectful. They've not seen anything about us. Everyone Something's gone down there.
Go back, we're peaceful. Go back, we don't need you, we're peaceful.
Everyone needs to have the terrible support to us. The people who love us and the people who are loyal to us. Okay? Our friends who stood by me in this movement for other years. One of the next ones coming up has been in the movement, has been by my side for 50 years. Yes, how we doing? I've been doing this for 7 years, and I've never seen a more beautiful crowd than what I'm seeing today. I need to make one thing very clear. This man is facing time in prison, away from the beautiful wife and kids. And this is the warning. We have done it and we will do it again. If they take it.
And I'm interested in how the mainstream media are going to report on this. Black people, brown people, white people, pink people, only two genuine neighbours. And nonetheless, everyone's mingling and mixing together, everyone's loving each other, no one's aggressive, no one's rowdy, we all want the same thing, and we've all got every right to be frustrated because we're being put last at the moment. All we want to do is be considered first in our own country. And going back, just to round it off on friendship and putting together and
and really becoming one, and really uniting the kingdom. If you've got silly little squabbles amongst groups or old enemies, someone spilt your pint or something fucking silly like that, let it go. If you're at home rowing with the wife or the husband, go home, let that shit go. Don't sweat the small stuff, because we are at war with the establishment and we do not need to be at war with each other.
Sure, you don't need your fucking head from your ass.
This is the end of the day, and we're thanking everybody who has come in today. We came before we come. If you're watching this and you contributed from home, you give us your money to put on this event. The success has been down to you. Please, you've behaved impeccably again. Well done. Well done. And let's hope we've turned a corner with the Metropolitan Police Force, who once again have stuck to what they've said. So show the police some respect for today as well, yeah? Well done. Please leave calmly, safely. We're going to end it one more time. Uniting the kingdom.
We hear whispers of our fathers echo throughout the land. Darkness creeps in halls of power, hidden from the light. Our beating hearts are screaming. It's time to rise and fight. On the 27th of July, we come to stand and fight against the chains that bind us, that takes away our rights. We the common people are standing side by side, fighting for our freedoms. We've come from far and wide. Global winds are blowing, trying to erase our past. With promises of unity, the dark shadows is what they cast. From the east and west they come to tear our rights away. But we will rise together. We will have our say. On the 27th of July, we come to stand and fight against the chains that bind us, that takes away our rights. We the common people are standing side by side, fighting for our freedoms. We've come from far and wide. No more will we be silenced. No more will we bow. We'll reclaim our destiny. The time is here and now. With courage in our hearts and fire in our stand against oppression beneath the British skies. On the 27th of July, we come to stand and fight against the chains that bind us, that takes away our rights. Fighting for our freedoms, we've come from far and wide. Rise up, for this land we dearly love. We'll fight for our freedom with strength from God above. Against the tide of tyranny, we will stand for one and all. For Britain and her freedom, we must stand and serve the strong. On the 27th of July, we come to stand and fight against the chains that bind us, that takes away our rights.
Yes, Mom L. I don't know what it's done for 20 years. My granddad was Irish. I remember it.
Safe journey home, guys. Thank you. Here, wait. Here. Here, wait. Tell me that.
Do you want to know why we're protesting? Is that what you're reporting about?
Right, because there's a huge influx of coloured people coming to a country that's predominantly white. If it was the other way around, you'd feel the same way, innit?
Because they perpetrate. They do. They ignore it. They do. I'm sick of children getting. I can't. I'm crying too much today.
Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson.
Tommy Robinson. Fucking brilliant, this. Yeah. Sorry?
They
digging out. They sort of on your foot if you just dig that out there, we'll see you later. Well, the lads got to the cubicle with the door there after this. Something feet right there, with the wire. Not being constant.
Okay, so what should I do?
That's why they don't want him in, because it's going against their values and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
It's against the system. He can't be bought with money, he's got his own.
Tied into training. Yeah. Watch your step.
What's the charge?
Everything on that post.
No reason whatsoever. Yeah, you ain't got a cookie.
She gets out.
We are led by tyrants our borders and countries. Governments interested in faith. That's right. And now all the great
Two of his books, Enemy of the State and Silenced. As an editor, I was once director of the United Kingdom Society of Editors. I have been in front of users for Contempt and libel in the Roman topic. As such, it puts me in a position to authoritative today when I believe these will be put through. And I will not be here today if sorry had not been dragged off the streets of until yesterday. In my 46 years as a journalist, I've seen some grievous and egregious injustices carried out, but never I've seen two worse than the ones I've just gone around through very briefly. In 2018, Tommy was dragged off the streets of Leeds by a judge called Jeffrey Marson. He was locked up for weeks on end on a contempt of court charge that I can tell you now was not contempt of court. Indeed, if you remember the case, he was thrown out and Tommy was freed. Such was the state of the British establishment that the Attorney General was instructed to go back and find something to get Tommy Robinson back in court on, and they did. I sat in the Old Bailey in 2019 and I watched Dame Victoria Sharp tear up the 1981 Contempt of Court Act and rewrite it specifically to put our friend in jail. That was unheralded in the history of my 46 years as a journalist and an editor. I thought it couldn't get worse than that, but it did. In 2021, you'll remember that Tommy was in court for libel. He was bankrupt, he didn't have a lawyer. The judge in that case, Sir Matthew Nicklin, appointed me as what is called a Mackenzie friend. I sat by Tommy's side through that entire trial, helping him prepare his case, his defence, all the court documentation. And I thought I'd seen it all at the Old Bailey when they locked Tommy up. I haven't seen it all. In that 2-week trial, a young man from Huddersfield came on the first morning, gave a sullen, sulky 40 minutes of evidence and then disappeared for the rest of the trial. He did not face his accusers. That court, Sir Matthew Nicklin, heard from parents, teachers, a head teacher, social workers, British Council documentation about the character of what new manager of the charity. And then 5 young people from the European evidence. 5 courageous young people. And after 3 months, Justice Matthew Nicklin was prepared to call us all back into court for his verdict. But he didn't. Well, that was, excuse me. And the reason he didn't was because he was ashamed to face those children. And he found Tommy Robinson guilty, and he said, of each one of those 5 children and those 7 teachers and parents, that every single one of them lied. That's all they know. He called everyone a liar. And when he justified it, finding Tommy guilty, he said this. Why do people lie? Who knows? People sometimes just lie. And with that, he destroyed Tommy's identity, he destroyed the faith in the British justice,
But you went there with many people.
Yes, you like 2nd and 3rd generation, right? Like you like those, like obviously. Of course you did, right? Because there's a huge influx of coloured people coming to a country that's predominantly white. If it was the other way around, you'd feel the same way, innit?
I'm old enough to remember the picture of the generation.
Yeah, but I'll say it how it is. People coming in calling you black. Right? But we've got through it as people, right? And now here we are as people, we can stand there and be honest.
You know what it is? You know what it is?
But a lot of these fuckers, they don't understand.
A lot of the conversations you're going to hear, right? What they're going to do, they're going to keep making it about black and white. And that's the only way they can talk.
But it's not like
right and wrong. they will all be hit.
Exactly. No, but it's not even black and white anymore. It's more white against Islamophobia. It's not so much black and white. Because every major city in this country is more mixed than anywhere else in the fucking world. Fact. Fact.
Multicultural everywhere.
Fact. And they tend to call us people far right when you're black, I'm mixed. What's far right about us? What's far right about us? No, we got an opinion and people want to shut it down because they don't like the opinions we have. Yeah? Just like the other people have opinions on this.
Someone has to tell me what Tommy Robbins said that's racist.
Nothing.
Tell me something.
Nothing.
Someone has to say something.
Yeah, but this guy's trying to get young girls being stopped from being raped and whatnot. You know what I mean? What's racist about that? No, he's trying to protect people. Yeah? Of all races, creeds and colours. Yeah? It's more than that. It's more than that.
You know what I mean? The only people that's got an argument are the people that's going to move it onwards.
More than that. But we can't just blame the immigrants, right? You can't just blame the immigrants. Yeah, they're trying to take the opportunity, just like our families come here 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. But the difference is, they didn't come here illegally. One, they were either invited, or two, they came here working and worked hard. Most of these fuckers that are coming here legally, they don't work, they bring nothing to this country, no skills, and all they do is take. And do they have respect for this culture? No, they don't.
And it's our tax money that's paid.
No, they don't. No, they don't. They don't give a fuck about this culture. But yeah, if a British person goes to Spain or goes somewhere else, goes to Asia, we have to respect their culture, innit? We get told to do that. Now, let me flip it. The recent protests in Spain, did those people get called far right? No. No, because they're going against, what was it? Over tourism. Oh, so we don't like tourists coming to our country. Oh, but it's not racist, is it? So what's the difference with us? We don't want illegal immigrants coming to our country. So should we get our water guns and spray them with water guns? Then maybe we'll be seen under a different light. But you see how the policies and the politics change. Yeah, when the light's on a different aspect. People like you don't understand. Bro, don't put that on YouTube. No, no, serious.
Stay blessed, alright?
No, you know why? Because I know a lot of...
Go for it,
They were bastards. We thought we were there back when they came in. Shit.
lives matter. We want to say something right now, that this train, this movement is bound for glory. I don't know if you believe what I'm saying, but this movement is bound for glory. We want to thank the main man, the leader of this cultural movement, the one and only Tommy Roberts. Tommy Roberts. We also are here today to represent the foundation of this great land that we call the United Kingdom. And that foundation is none other than the Lord Jesus Christ. And with the Lord Jesus Christ behind us, we know that this train is bound for glory. Let me tell you, this train is bound for this train. I'm talking about this train is bound for glory. This don't carry nothing but the righteous and the holy. This train. Just got the hands in this place. Come on. This train bound for glory. This train is bound for glory. This train is bound for glory. But the righteous and holy. Come on. It's bound for glory. This train is united. This train is united the kingdom. This train. This train is united the kingdom.
Right down on the minibus and then
That's a bit higher.
The road. Just stood in the middle of the road.
You just call me up.
Oh, you can, yeah.
You don't. Did you see the geese running the boots? The mega shot?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's in there.
Where?
See that geese in the black jacket?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, is he one of them?
Oh, right. He's good, he's good. Was this in Hyde Park?
Awesome.
Okay.
You know, you looked in here.
Fire over, Jack.
Bring you guys back.
There's a couple over there.
Oh, the house
I think they were.
Label, the stigma, all right, the usual trap. It would be nice actually when he gets up here because he can see that there's nothing far right about this crowd. The only thing is just right. So please, give this young man
a massive cheer around the applause. I don't know anybody's age that can't do this. Let's a man. Let's go. James Gibson.
United as one. The cause are alright because we love our country. And every one of you are not far right, you're concerned citizens because down the street, Keir Starmer protects his own. What do you know? Keir Starmer has bloody hands. He stands here united. He killed Peter Lynch. This government did. Now, I ask you all as well to join us in the fight to build our country. Great Britain, make it truly great. Now, I can see UKIP flag. UKIP are the real party, the party for the people, not Reform UK. Fake party, fake. They kicked me out because I stood for Tommy. Are you all hearing this? The party for the Patriots. Tommy's the biggest patriot we've ever got.
Are you reporters? Are you reporters? Do you want to do an interview? Come on, I'll do an interview.
You don't. Top man. Always. How you finding it today?
Do you want to know why we're protesting?
Go on.
Is that what you're reporting about? We're protesting because the other day I was down watching the boats come in, and there was at least 400 boats on every 400 people on every dinghy, right? And there must have been about, there was about 10, maybe 7 or 10 dinghies, right? Now, my mother-in-law, she can't get an appointment at the hospital. She ended up like in the hospital she had to wait 24 hours for an appointment at the hospital in the waiting room, right? That's why we're protesting. It's now to do with what people, not to do being racist. Tommy Robinson. It's now to do being racist. I wouldn't have nothing against you, I wouldn't have nothing against him. You've come here legally probably, and you've worked, don't you? You're a reporter, so you obviously work. Nothing against you, it's illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants are coming here, and the NHS is knackered. There's loads of people homeless on the street. You can't even get a hotel room because the hotel rooms are full of illegal immigrants who get £1,500 on a card to be able to get food and clothes for the first month. Get £1,500 on a card, and I know that because I know somebody who works in the actual for the government, who works there and tells us exactly what they get. So they get £1,500 for that, and then if they haven't got a SIM card or a phone, anything like that to phone home, they get a phone, they get a SIM card, 100%. I know this because I know people who work for the government. And then we've got loads of, even our veterans who fought to stop slavery. Their families fought to stop slavery, and they're on the streets while the hotels are full of illegal immigrants. Do you want to say something, Per? Do you want to say something to them?
Yes, and they get houses as well. They get houses as well. They get everything. And we get fuck all.
And that's why we're here. It's nothing to do with racism. Like I say, you've got a job and you work here and you're a good man. It's nothing to do with racism. I've got all of my friends, I dare say 40% of my friends are either Asian or black. So it's nothing to do with racism, I promise you. And that's what they need to stop putting out. Because it's in far right. sorry, sweetheart. That's what they need to stop putting out. That it's far right, crap, whatever they say. They need to stop putting that out because that's the mainstream media lying again. And they lie about us all the time. We're not racist. What we don't like is illegal immigrants coming into this country and not just taking our jobs. Like I told you, the hospitals are so full. People can't get an appointment in the hospitals. We haven't got the resources to be able to deal with this many people coming in. Do you know what I mean? We haven't got the resources. We just can't do it. And unfortunately, I feel for them people who are coming from them other countries. And I see them and I feel for them. But unfortunately, I don't exactly. I feel for them, okay? But I support my children first. I support my children first, and that doesn't matter what colour they are. I support my children first, and my children have to come first in this country. And everybody needs to look at what is happening. We need to take this to the colleges. That's where it's starting, in the colleges. It's starting. It's starting in the schools, and it's starting in the colleges. It's the teachers who are going in. We care about everybody, do you know what I mean? But unfortunately, we cannot deal no more with what's going on. Do you agree with what I'm saying or not? You do. What's
So we don't want everyone coming to the platform saying, I'm Charlie Healy. We only want the real Charlie Healy. If you remember that first protest, all the caps raised from Spikers. I am Spikers. Every single one of you in this town today, I want to hear your voices say, I am Charlie Robinson.
Oh, sorry, mate.
But they ignore it because of the perpetrator. They do. They ignore it. They do. I'm sick of children getting. I can't. I'm crying too much today.
Thank you.
Hey, what do you do? One pays, all drinking.
What's in it?
And then